How's it going? Welcome to the Rain Race podcast. New intro if you're watching on YouTube. It only took 2 years for me to go off the default. But there
Slick.
you go. There you go. We're trying to keep things slick here. We're encroaching on our 100th episode here, by the way, man. We are 5 away. This is episode 95, if I counted correctly. Depends where you look. Some of them say it's already over 100, but there were a bunch of like extra episodes in the early days of this thing. So I think by the official count, we're getting close to 100. We'll have to do something fun
I
for
mean,
that
your
one.
your count is the official count, so
Sure. Spotify says there's like 102 or something. By my count, it's like 95. So
Spotify doesn't know what they're talking about.
somewhere in the middle. Um, we got a show in store tonight, don't we? We have, usually I would say, we're going to try to keep the race recap a little bit short, and then we'll take some questions, and then we'll do some news pieces. But I don't think we're going to keep with the trend tonight on that one. And rather, actually, we're probably going to do what we always try not to do and spend a little bit too much time talking about the race. I want to talk about IMSA driving standards. I think it's about time we have a proper episode to talk about it. I got to be honest with you from the start. You're not going to hear anything revolutionary, at least out of my mouth tonight. A lot of these things that I'm going to talk about, you've already heard me say for the better part of a year and a half, 2 years now. So take it as you will. This is going to be a one place to get all those thoughts out after what we saw recently at Road America, but we're going to save that for a little bit later. We want to get some of the exciting stuff out of the way first and some of the more positive things out of Road America, because I think all things considered, Stu, once we had that race get into a green flag rhythm, which took a long time,
Yeah, I sure did.
it did deliver what I would like to see from an IMSA race at Road America, which in my opinion, one of, if not maybe the best sprint race of the year. Definitely up there, even including some of the endurance races in terms of the on-track action that we usually get at this track. And this year was certainly no exception to that. So we're going to cover all of that first. Wanted to, of course, give the floor to you for a little bit here since I've been rambling at the start of this show. And maybe you can walk us through some of the positive things that we saw out of Road America to start things off.
Yeah, let's really front load this with positivity. It's what's that? It's like a compliment sandwich. That's what we want to do tonight, right? So let's front load this with positivity, and let's start off with the positivity in the GTP class. Let's just jump in and talk about what the positive things that we saw from GTP this weekend. And number one positive thing that you see coming out of the weekend, the BMW 1-2. BMW has had the pace to take a win this year, and they finally, maybe they weren't necessarily the quickest car all weekend long, but they were right there with the Acuras the entire weekend long, half a tenth behind them in qualifying. You want another GTP positive? The top 10 all, and that encompassed all 5 of the manufacturers were under 7/10 separated from one another at a track as big as Road America. That's a positive sign there. That's a good sign that everybody's nice and close. But BMW 1-2, they nailed that pit strategy. At the during that final stint. I was talking about it sort of pre-race that, with the track being as large as Road America is, largest on the calendar, you can pit and not lose a lap. And you were going to see teams that were flipping the strategy and trying to pit as early as they possibly could. So if a full course yellow comes out, they're able to essentially get that free pit stop. They're able to get all that track position back and then pass everybody when they come in to make their pit stop. So that's exactly what BMW did. BMW nailed the strategy. You got to give them a shout out for that, especially after we were so hard on them early in the year. And then of course the other kind of, I said that they had a quiet weekend, and I saw some comments that it's certainly not a quiet car, and that's the Aston Martin Valkyrie coming home with their best finish of the season. They hung with the number 6 Porsche Penske Motorsports 963 the entire final stint of that race. virtually the entire final stint, they were right around within a second of that car. Maybe didn't have the ultimate pace to be able to complete that overtake, but they weren't being necessarily pressured from behind, and they were hanging with the 963, which is, you know, just another feather, I think, in the Valkyrie's cap, and you know, they're rewarded for it with that their best finish ever of a sixth place. So in terms of positives, those are the two big ones that stuck out to me: BMW and Aston Martin. Do you have any other positives stuck out to you in GTP?
Those are definitely the GTP standouts. I will say it's sort of fitting, isn't it? And maybe that's why I picked them for BMW to pick up that win here. This is the first race that they're on track. Of course, they weren't present at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, so their last race was back at Watkins Glen, which was before the announcement that Ray Hall would not be carrying that program next year. Of course, they would go out and win the next race. This is very sort of on brand for that team and that manufacturer, where last year at Indianapolis, they got a 1-2 right after their whole Ray Hall headquarters FBI raid situation that was going on. So
they just need controversy, right? So
pretty much that's pretty much what I'm gathering here. Great turnaround for them though, and not just a win but also a 1-2. They really seem to be in a position where we're either yelling at them for throwing away wins or they're surprising us with a 1-2 finish, and there's not that much in between. But a much awaited victory for that BMW Team RLL team. Hopefully not the last time that we ever say that, as we only have 2 races left with that car and that team. So for next year, in the hands of a new team, we think it's going to be Team WRT picking that program up next year. We're not sure what that program is going to look like quite yet. But one more win on the board, one more 1-2 on the board for Team RLL, and that long-term partnership with BMW, I think, is a feel-good story that most of the paddock can get behind.
Yeah, absolutely. We have, as always with these shows being live, if you guys have your thoughts, make sure to fire them into the comments. We'll definitely be looking at those comments as the night goes on. And if you're watching this after the fact, then you can always reply to one of our tweets. And if you have any questions for the night's show. But Kevin in the YouTube chat says, positive, Road America opened the track 30 minutes after the race for people to walk or run it. Very cool to get to walk the track. Yeah, that's a nice little touch for the fans that, you know, brave the weekend at the track, and then they get to walk it a little bit at the end. Every track kind of has different rules surrounding that. I know, like CTMP, I mean, pretty much they usually let people on the track kind of at the end of the day when the running's done anyways, from my understanding. And then, you know, you see it a lot after like Formula One races where fans get to go and walk on the track or walk to the podium. So cool that that Road America opened up the track after the fact to for the fans to be able to check it out.
Yeah, kudos to the organizer for that. I will say, this is, of course, a race that's going to be part of the Michelin Endurance Cup next year. So I love Road America, first of all. I've only been there once. It was back in 2021. I know you were there last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
It will be difficult for me to not try to justify going there for a 6-hour race next year.
Yeah.
Really love that track. Would love to make it back out at some point. So excited to have that as a thing that's coming up.
Oh yeah, we make that work, and then we can have a live rain race podcast at the race.
It was a struggle enough doing it from an apartment in Germany, so I wouldn't count on it.
You never know, crazy things have happened, right? But keeping this show on its tracks, because I think we're going to be derailed a little bit later on. I think that's about all the positives from GTP, right?
Yeah, overall, yeah.
Okay. LMP2, there was one big positive that stood out to me this weekend, and that was they're making their IMSA debut was Team Tonus, featuring the 61 entry there. Really solid weekend. You know, they were the only car other than AO Racing that led in this race. Just looked really solid all weekend long. Just you got to give them a shout out. It's always difficult for a brand new team to jump into the WeatherTech Championship. and all the rules that you have to, be aware of, all these things that are behind the scenes that we have no idea really of ultimately of what goes on. But there's a lot of stuff that those teams have to prepare for, and just to cross their T's and dot their I's to be ready to race. So really good job for that team to just have a smooth weekend in their first IMSA race. Again, led some laps, spent some time up at the front, and even though they had some off track stuff at one moment, I think they took out a signboard, but they were able to recover from that and still have a really solid race. So good for that team. Anything that you saw?
Well, I was going to say, I definitely agree with you on that one. A completely unbranded, basically unliveried car there.
Yep.
And they spent some considerable time in the top 3, as you mentioned. So great to see what they were able to do in their debut. We'll have to see what they hold, what the future holds for them over in the WeatherTech Championship. I don't know if you have any other positives for P2, but I do have a stark negative.
Oh boy, I could. Okay,
I think you can already see probably where I'm going here.
There's probably a few negatives. I'll also give a shout out to Connor De Filippi in the 43 Inter Europol. He was stepping in as the pro driver in that car, as Tom Dillman is still recovering from his injuries that he sustained at CTMP. But Connor De Filippi, everything that I heard, first time ever in an LMP2, at least in race competition, and did a great job. They finished second on the weekend. Really kept the 43's championship hopes with just a couple of LMP2 rounds remaining intact. So well done to him.
Yeah. I was going to say 22 United, championship leader going in.
Oh, yeah.
Horrible race for them. They spun
Absolutely
on the one of their reconnaissance laps, pace laps, if we're going to go American here. And didn't make it that much further into the actual race once they did get the green. Had some contact with the CrowdStrike APR Orica, all Oricas here in LMP2, and crashed on the inside wall in turn 1. And that was pretty much day done for the championship leader going in. Of course, they've been in, especially in this mid-season part of the championship where AO has really picked up in LMP2. The two of them are really battling for the championship lead in that class. And again, we're only 2 races left for these prototypes in IMSA right now. So really tough result for the 22 United team. And if it comes down to it at Petit Le Mans, where that's the move that ends up losing them the championship, I think that might be the point where we really point at the season and say, so it went all wrong for them.
Yeah, that's a good call out there too. I think they may have had another incident earlier in the weekend as well, during practice or something with the 22. So I think it was just a really rough overall weekend for them. See how they bounce back going into Indy, which is the next round for the P2s.
Yep.
GTD Pro, positives that we saw from this one, man. Are there many positives that we can draw from it?
Dragon Speed's still looking good.
Yeah. Dragon Speed just had a quiet weekend. Did their thing. Walked away with another podium. They are serious GTD Pro championship threats, and we'll touch on the championship points here in a minute before we really get into the meat of this episode. But yeah, Dragon Speed was solid. Ford and the 64 Multimatic Mustang ever since they came storming out of the gates at the beginning of the season, they've been a little bit quiet the last couple rounds. So pull off a P2 finish. Maybe didn't have P2 speed, but had the survival instinct, I guess, in them to be able to pull off that P2. So solid weekend for Ford and Dragon Speed.
Yeah, I guess if I'm going to be the negative Nancy going down this section, I'll throw one out for GTD Pro as well. You and I both picked Corvette this weekend. I picked the 4 and you picked the 3, and things went very quickly downhill for them after they were looking very strong. Both cars getting taken out in the span of like a couple minutes, really.
Literally one corner.
Yeah.
One corner.
That's right, because one was taken out in turn 1 and then the other was spun in turn 2, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so not a great day, all things considered, for Corvette. The 4 car did recover from their spin. At least they didn't get a lot of damage from it, so they were able to continue on there. But overall, a result that got away from them. I think both cars really probably could have been in contention for that win had that misfortune not hit them.
Absolutely. They had serious speed again. I feel like we've said that a lot about Corvette all season long, is they've had really good speed. Things have just not worked out for them. But that being said, they're still in very good position in the championship standings, which is ultimately where they really want to be. So we'll see how the last 3 rounds for them are going to unfold, starting with VIR here in a couple of weeks. GTD, there is actually a very positive story here, and that would be not only did they have good results on the weekend. I'm going to say that is just because they created their own positive karma. But that's the Forte Racing Lamborghini. They ended up finishing second in the GTD class, which was a war out there. But the 78. So the FAF Motorsports Lamborghini, they had a big accident in practice, and the car was a write-off. So Forte had their backup car, and they lent it to FAF for the weekend. The FAF crew stayed up into the night. They had to bring it up to the current IMSA spec, which means they had to install like torque sensors and stuff like that. So the FAF crew stayed up, got that done, and had the car ready to race. Car looked reasonably quick in the race, but they had some penalty troubles, as half the field seemed to have. But the 78 for their for a nice feel good story on the weekend. After doing the good thing, lending out that car. They walk away with a second place finish. So one of the real positive stories of the weekend coming from Forte and GTD.
Yeah, especially rebounding from their misfortune over at CTMP one race back. Mm-hmm. Don't know if you mentioned that or not.
Yeah. Any you want it?
I don't know. You know what? Maybe it's for the best. I don't actually have one that stands out as a rough weekend in GTD. Of course, were a lot of people who got caught up in things, but
I'll give one more positive shout in GTD before we go through. We'll do the results and talk about and just briefly mention the championship standings. Kenton Cook in the winning 021 Triarci Ferrari, obviously second race with that team. Previously was with the Korthoff Competition Motors Mercedes that is now vanished from the grid for the year. So Kenton Cook kind of landing on his feet with Triarci and getting a win in just second race with the team. So we'll probably talk about how that win came about, but good for Kenton to get that done. Results wise, run through the podium here in GTP. It was a 1-2 finish for BMW and their M hybrid V8. It seems like, if they're going to win big. And they certainly won big this weekend with a 1-2 finish off the back of that good strategy call. The 93 Maishank Racing Acura, who was the pole sitter for this race, kind of got burned by that full course yellow. They probably were going to be the car to beat had that full course yellow not come out, but they settle for a podium finish in GTP. In LMP2, it was the 99 AO Racing of PJ Hyatt and Dane Cameron taking the win there. Back-to-back wins for that car. A very good weekend. Once again, there a dominant race for that car. Led every lap but 4, and I believe that was on a pit cycle at one point. So very good job for them. They seem to... I think it's about a 100-point lead in the LMP2 championship standings, which we'll look at in a second. But they're starting to really separate themselves, it seems like, in that class. The 43 Inter Europol and the 11 TDS Racing entries rounded out the podium there. In GTD Pro was the number 1 Paul Miller Racing BMW of Madison Snow and Neil Verhagen taking the win out of the 64 Ford Multimatic Motorsports Mustang and the 81 Dragon Speed Ferrari, who just seems to keep putting out good result after good result. It was another Ferrari in GTD, the 021 Triarci entry, that took the win there. Onofrio Triarci, I believe, is how it's pronounced, and Kenton Cook, the drivers there, ahead of the 78 Forte Racing Lamborghini and the 34 Conquest Racing Ferrari, rounding out the podium. Ferraris were strong in the GTD classes this weekend. Taking a look at the championship standings, it's the 6 Porsche Penske Motorsports 963 that leads in GTP, ahead of the sister number 7 by 75 points, with the 24 BMW, 93 Meyershank Racing Acura, and 10 Wayne Taylor Racing Cadillac, rounding out the top 5 there. So the next closest Porsche behind is 181 points. I believe that I think it's a 187 point swing. It should be about that in our final 2 races of the season, since we should have the Proton Porsche back, as well as the Lamborghini. So a little bit bigger of a point swing there. We'll see if Porsche can hang on to that GTP championship. In LMP2, AO Racing has a 107 point lead over the 22 United Autosports entry, who had that horrible day. The 74 Riley did have a good day going in LMP2, but really fell like a stone in the last 20 minutes of that race. They're 211 points back. That's a pretty large margin to try and recover from. The 43 Inter Europol entry is in 4th, and rounding at the top 5 is the number 11 TDS Racing entry. And then in GTD Pro, this is going to be a championship battle to watch, I think, for the final few rounds of the championship. The 3 Corvette leads the 81 Dragon Speed Ferrari by just 30 points with 3 races to go. So should be a fun battle to watch there. AO Racing is just 97 points back, so don't rule them out. The 64 Ford is 160 points back, with the 48 BMW 230 points back. It was a pretty terrible day for the top 3 in the GTD standings, although the margins didn't really change all that much. Windward Racing leads by 112 points over the 12 Vassar Sullivan Lexus, and the 27 Heart of Racing Aston Martin is in 3rd there, 117 points back. Turner Motorsports and the 120 Wright Porsche round out the top 5. So couple of championship battles to keep our eyes on here in the final few rounds of the season. Hopefully we'll see that GTD battle get close, but the GTD Pro battle should be very fun to watch. And while we're still talking about the results, Box of Crabs, I think you're right. I think this was Triarci's first win in the WeatherTech Championship. So congratulations goes out to them.
Absolutely. I want to jump back here talking about the GTD Pro points. You're talking about the 3 Corvette leading the standings there. It is very interesting to note that Corvette, that 3 car, has not picked up a win this year.
Yeah.
They've been knocking on the door many times. They were kind of knocking on the door at this race, but have not converted, but have been very consistent throughout the remainder of the season. I was looking at the results, and the only results that really stand out this season would be Sebring, 7th place finish there. CTMP, they finished 4th. And then the rest of the season, Daytona was a 2nd place finish. Detroit was 2nd. Watkins Glen was 2nd. So consistency wins championships. Maybe. Don't want to make any promises yet, because they're definitely in a close fight with that 81 Dragon Speed Ferrari, who I'll also add, I think is a really, I don't know if I want to say surprising contender for the championship this year. We know they have that Risi Competency backing behind them, sort of supporting that program in the background. But this is the first time we've seen a Ferrari full-time in that pro class in IMSA in many years at this point. Mm-hmm. And for them to be as strong as they have been this year, really sort of picking up after the first few races of the season. I don't see any reason at all why they can't continue that momentum and try to put a fight up towards the number 3 car in these final few races.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we're also looking at, you know, a lot of these tracks that the Dragon Speed have been going to so far haven't been tracks that they've run that Ferrari at yet. Like this is their first full season running that car. Of course, we've associated them with running, you know, LMP2s a lot in the past. So real big jump for them to go into this GTD Pro class. And they ran this Ferrari at Indy last year. I don't think they had it at, I don't think they were at VIR. But for the last couple rounds of the season, Indy and Road Atlanta, then you know they're going to have a little bit of data that they got from this race last year. So yeah, Dragon Speed very much a championship threat, and yeah, definitely an underdog. I don't think anybody was circling Dragon Speed at the start of the season in such a heavyweight class like GTD Pro to be able to sneak into the championship fight and maybe steal this from the big dog. So well done to Dragon Speed.
Also, don't know if it was mentioned, but top 5 in GTD Pro, 5 different manufacturers.
Yep.
And realistically, all of them are still within punching distance of being able to win the championship. I know some of those are a little bit more unlikely than others, but definitely not out of the picture altogether. So really shows to the quality of what we're seeing in GTD Pro this season when it works. And maybe that's a good segue into our main story tonight. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's time.
All right. You're going to have to walk me through it here, okay? Because we saw at this race, all right, let's start here. You put a poll up over on X, as you do, after
Yes.
I think all IMSA races, asking if this was a good race. Generally for me, if I answer that, I don't really think too heavily into it.
Yep.
But for this one, I decided to throw a comment in and say, well, are we separating the first and the second half of the races? Because if you just asked me based on the first half of the race, worst IMSA race we've had in a very long time, to be quite frank with you. Afterwards, once we actually got sufficient green flag running in that final hour of the race, like I said, I think it delivered on a lot of the action we come to expect from an IMSA race at Road America. So in that regard, it was good. By the way, for what it's worth, I let the good outwin the evil on that poll for myself, so I said it was a good race, but it was definitely not the easiest pick I've ever had to make. There were a lot of incidents in this race, and a lot of comments from drivers after the race talking about driving standards that we've been seeing, not just in this race, but in the championship in general. If you gave us a $1 donation for every single time we mention the words IMSA and driving standards in the last year, but I know we've been talking about this for the last 2 years, we'd probably have about $50. So,
Bit of a lot.
So I wanted to spend some time in this episode talking about the driving standards that we're seeing in IMSA. Number one, answering the main question, is it a problem? Which I think is a bit of a rhetorical question right now. I think a lot of people have been vocal that it is a problem in IMSA. It's been increasingly more and more apparent in recent years, potentially. And then what can they do to fix it? Which I think, again, we're not going to be, at least I'm not going to be saying anything revolutionary here. I've had the same ideas for the past 2 years now on things IMSA could do to try to improve the situation. And to be honest with you, haven't really seen a whole lot of progress made in that direction. So let's talk about some of the incidents first. I do want to throw a stat out, which I might have thrown out earlier in the show, but I can't remember. An hour and 12 minutes of this race were under full course yellow, so nearly half. Of course, talking about a 2 hour and 40-minute race total. Majority of that yellow flag running was in the first half of the race. And actually,
you back that up with what we had at the Glen as well. That's rough.
Yeah, I'm kind of cheating here because I got notes to reference as well. Less than a lap of green flag running for the first half hour of the race, if I'm not mistaken. Granted, some of that was sort of me tuning in and out of social media, so I might be wrong about that. But in general, pretty close to less than a lap of green flag running in that first half hour of the race. And Aaron also mentioning in the chat, we're seeing a sort of similar situation over in the Pilot Challenge race this past weekend as well. Some of the key incidents for this race, I think the one that I'm going to talk about, because ultimately it's the one that IMSA sort of said enough is enough about, was the contact between the 10 Wayne Taylor Racing Cadillac and the 7 Penske Porsche. I was watching the NBC broadcast of this race. Their commentary actually made the point that, okay, actually, Nick Tandy, you're allowed to make a move in, not in return, but you're allowed to make the initial move over as long as you don't switch that move after the other person has reacted to it. So Nick Tandy, to his credit, I suppose, just threw a pretty hefty block down to the inside of whatever turn that is, the one going up the hill into the left-hander.
Yeah.
And waved the 10 Cadillac out in the grass and spun them out. Ultimately, IMSA threw the hammer out at this point. This was many yellows into the race. I think IMSA Race Control just had enough at this point.
Yeah.
Slapped the 7 car with a stop plus 60, which for IMSA standards is relatively unprecedented. Very rare that we see penalties that strong thrown out. And I was honestly very surprised that they threw a penalty that strict out for something that was a little bit debatable. I know Pipo Derani was also pretty vocal on social media, sort of echoing that claim. He basically said it was ridiculous to penalize them that much.
Well, I mean, this sounds like a Pipo response, though. We know Pipo's pretty aggressive, so
take it as you will. I will say of note, it's kind of ironic that I have a theory. If Tandy didn't do that, I think there's a good chance we see the 6 car win that race. Because, I mean, Porsche had a lack of pace to the 93 car, definitely, but they played the track position game, which ended up being very important this weekend, to their advantage with the pit stop strategy. They sort of, I don't want to say under-fueled the car, but under-energized the car.
Yeah.
If we're going to use the virtual energy analogy here.
No, we can say fuel. We can say fuel.
Yeah, they under-fueled the car and jumped the rest of the field and were 1-2 one part of the race. I don't know. You can debate me on that one. They were definitely in a good track position, though, to try to do that if we didn't have that yellow come out for the incident between the 7 and the 10.
Yeah, they were. So when that incident occurred, I guess you're right. Porsche was leading, so that's reasonable. The 6 was leading in that. The 6, the 31 was running second, which seemed very quiet all weekend long. And then the 10 was in third. We were right on the verge of that wasn't. Yeah, we were right on the verge of pit stops. At this point, though, as well. So that is important to remember. But yeah, you're right. The Porsche could have been in a very good position to win had this not come out. But I guess
they only took like 8% less energy or something.
Yeah,
than the other cars. So it's not like they were going to be sitting in the box for an extra 15 seconds. I mean, I don't remember what the gap was at that point, but it certainly wasn't.
Yeah, not either.
They weren't going to be spending that much time extra.
It wasn't that spread out because they only had like, oh man, what is this, like 10 or 11 laps of green flag racing between those full course yellows. So before that last one, so they couldn't have been that spread out. But yeah, it's I guess we'll never know, right? But Porsche going for 3 in a row. But yeah, to bring it back to that incident, I think. Yeah, it may have slightly been influenced by race control, seeing the racing that we had witnessed up until this point in the race being pretty atrocious, the driving standards, and seemed to just be going downhill. So I wouldn't be surprised if that influenced it a little bit, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I do agree with the penalty. Like, I feel like we've been looking for IMSA to put the hammer down on some of these incidents that look like this for years now. you think back to some of those championship deciding incidents at like Petit Le Mans. That's one that comes to mind, and that largely went unpunished.
Yeah.
And I was pleased to see a penalty handed down for this, because I think IMSA had to. I don't think IMSA had a choice in this, because if you let that go, and you're essentially inviting everybody to, whenever somebody is going to pass, you can just force your competitor off the track and have no repercussions for it. And while Tandy is entitled to have a move there, I mean, there's you still have to leave space for that. All of the time you must leave it a space, right?
Yeah, F1 doesn't really follow the standards anymore, so
Yeah, that's true. But penalty wise, there's we could debate it until the end of time, and there will be people that debate it until the end of time. But I think it was a good penalty to hand out, not only given the incident in a vacuum, but also considering everything else that was going on in that race. I think it's something that they had to do.
right. So I tend to agree with that actually. I don't have a problem so much with the penalty because, to be honest with you, if you're looking at the World Endurance Championship, that's probably about exactly what they would have gotten there. The problem I have in IMSA really is consistency, and we need to see incidents like that penalized consistently. And I think that's probably what Durrani's issue with it was as well, where we've had incidents where they've been taken out of championship contention and it's chalked up to a racing incident. And it's the moves that we're talking about there are hardly less egregious than what we saw here in this case. So I think that's a good first step, right? IMSA does need to be consistently penalizing incidents like that, where they're going to say, okay, listen, you don't need to go full one direction and say we cannot have any contact whatsoever. I do like the fact that IMSA sort of embraces the fact that yes, you can use the fenders a little bit, especially some of those street circuits where you're going to be hard pressed to pass regardless. Try to keep it clean though. We've seen IMSA races, generally speaking, they're either very good or they fall off the rails, much like this podcast. And so this is one of those races, and I can chalk up examples of other races that just went off the rails. Looked at Detroit last year, went off the rails. So for me, it's how do you mitigate that? How do you make it so that drivers are less ambitious, maybe is a nice way to put it, about throwing it up the inside or throwing an outrageous block that's going to end up with another car in the wall and then a full course yellow coming out. I think that's step one. And to their credit, maybe they seem like they're starting to get on top of that. We'll have to see if they carry on with that, though.
Yeah.
I think step two, and really the thing that most people have pointed out, and you and I have pointed this out, you've got to do something about the full course yellows in the series, because the incident itself is not as much the problem as the situation that you're in for that incident to happen in the first place, where said all the time in NASCAR races, cautions breed cautions. It applies to any racing series, of course. And we've seen that in IMSA races recently, where we'll have some races go green the majority, if not the entire race. And you and I are talking about how overall clean the race was. And then again, you'll have certain races where it's very yellow flag heavy, and then we'll be talking about there was just nonstop incidents. You're dealing with a series here where you have between 30 something, well, I guess 20 something in the GT only races and 60 cars on track when we get to Daytona. So, and you have a wide variety of different driver rankings in there as well. You have platinum professional drivers going against gentlemen bronze drivers, 4 different classes of cars, of course, even though 2 of them are really set at the same pace level. You're not going to have the same exact circumstances as every other series gets to deal with. And I do respect that. But all things considered, you do need to look at the yellow flags as really a catalyst for things going wrong here. So I have said before, I would love to see a sort of virtual
Yeah.
safety car situation in IMSA, like a full course yellow like we see in the World Endurance Championship. We know they're capable of doing it. And to be honest with you, I know why they don't do it. It's because it's not built for North American / US TV packages. Um, it's typically not the way we just do racing over here. You can look at NASCAR, you can look at IndyCar. None of them have really ever evaluated a sort of system like that, even though in many situations it makes sense. So I don't know. I want to get some of your thoughts along some of those things that I've said. Maybe you have some other suggestions. You made a whole video at the end of last
Yeah.
year talking about how we need to fix IMSA full course yellows. So maybe you had some points in that video that you'd be able to throw in here as well.
Yeah. So something that so I think a lot of this, stems from IMSA needs to figure out the consistency with the penalties. First and foremost, I think you have to figure out the consistency with the penalties, because that is, if you can determine that consistency, if it's going to be more harsh, that's fine. As long as we know, right? As long as you know that, if you spin somebody out, if it's contact you make with them, and you're in for like a stop plus 60, that's going to put you at least a full lap down. That's like, we know at that point, that's the penalty that is going, in it of itself, is going to be a deterrent. A drive-through penalty for taking out a competitor that you're racing hard with in the championship is not really that heavy of a penalty, especially with the style of racing that we see in IMSA, where there typically are some full course yellows towards the end of the race, bunch the field back up. I think first and foremost, IMSA has to figure that out, the penalty consistency, as you alluded to. I think when you have the penalty consistency locked down, I think you need to make the penalties hurt more when it is within X number of laps of going green. Whether it's the race start, whether it's after a full course yellow, this is when the field is bunched up that much closer together. If you're making the penalties more, this is what killed us in the race at Road America. This is what killed us, because we had 2 of the 5 full course yellows were immediately after we went green. Like, it was, we had lap 1, and then we technically, I guess, got a lap done after that first full course yellow, before we went back to full course yellow. And then it happened again later in the race, where it was back-to-back full course yellows. That makes those full course yellow sessions, when you have like 1 or 2 laps of green and then another full course yellow, that's what our real problem is. That's what makes it feel like an eternity, because then you are under full course yellow for half an hour or 40 minutes or whatever it ends up being. And that's really what gets the fans, annoyed at the full course yellow procedure. If we had 2 full course yellows in this race total at Road America, and they were both the long yellows, they're 15 minutes each, whatever it is, that's not the end of the world. But when we have 2 full course yellows that are, add them up, and they're basically 2 half-hour chunks of this race, like, that's really where we get problems. So I think we have to further deter, these incidents right after we go green again. And I think that's going to help a lot with the full course yellows. And that's before we even address, the whole virtual yellow system, or code 60, or virtual virtual safety car, whatever you want to call it. Because that absolutely is another huge solve. You alluded to that video that I put out last year. I pretty much concluded to myself from that is that, a virtual safety car system is not going to solve everything for IMSA here. It's not going to solve all the problems that we have with the full course yellows. It's not going to eliminate, 90% of full course yellows here. We're still going to, it was probably going to take down like a quarter of them, 30% of them. But even if that's, 1 per race, or 1 every 2 races that we eliminate, that's a noticeable amount of additional racing time over the course of the season that the fans get to experience. So I think there's a couple of different approaches that, you know, IMSA as a sanctioning body probably need to look hard at to make improvements on. And you know, the obvious one is those full course yellows, but I think also, you know, sorting out penalty consistency, and then, you know, make those penalties, you know, hurt more when it's you know, right when we're going back to green, to really try and, you know, hammer home the respectful racing, especially after those full course yellows. So I don't know, those kind of my thoughts, I think, generally speaking.
Yeah, agree with a lot of it. First of all, uh, what I'd sort of like to throw out is maybe we should come up with a way that IMSA can realistically just maybe not fully resolve this issue, but make strides towards fixing it. Because to be completely honest with you, I will eat this hat if IMSA implements a virtual safety car situation. I just don't see them
it would be
doing
surprising.
It's not something that is on brand, especially, you know, simple answer, but it's not on brand with a series that's owned by NASCAR. It's not on brand for a series that is broadcasted on NBC. So don't see that happening. And also, you know, maybe they don't need to do that. They don't need to go full in the other direction. IMSA, many of their moments, whether you agree with it or not, a lot of the exciting moments that we've seen, that we talk about for years and decades with this series, dating back to the Grand Am ALMS days, are close finishes that came after a late race safety car. I know you and I can be a little bit critical of that sometimes and say it sort of takes away from the spirit of the endurance aspect of it. But give credit where it's due. That is what is giving us a lot of those moments. So I can definitely sympathize with IMSA and understand why they wouldn't want to do that. Let's just say, if you want no greater proof of that, look at say like an IMSA close finish highlights video, if there is one on YouTube of that. If not, there's a free video idea. And try to compare that with like a WEC close finish highlights video. It's going to be a lot more of those late race exciting moments in IMSA than the World Endurance Championship.
Yep.
There's a very good reason behind that. All that's to say, I don't see a virtual safety car system getting implemented. I think the short yellows that you mentioned, huge. Absolutely have to this is not complicated. You have to implement some system of short yellows. Where if you have a big accident that you need to do a full cleanup of, you get all 4 classes through the pit lane, and then you go to a restart, and then Paul Miller Racing immediately takes out a Corvette. Then you just say, all right, car's spun around. We can get this race back restarted very quickly. You throw maybe like a lap or 2 tops under a safety car. You don't need to pit the cars again. Go back green. If that doesn't work, you round them up, do it again.
Yeah, in that instance, you know, you have, you know, maybe that's a system. You don't do the class split you don't redo a class split at that point. You just lock the running order of them. Yeah, because you don't need to, you know, worry about the class. I mean, let's be real here. When we do have back-to-back full course yellows, like the class split isn't really what's taking all the time here. It's when we're going through, you know, all the other procedural stuff. But yeah, you know, trying to eliminate as much as you possibly can for that short yellow period, or just be open to implementing the short yellow. Okay, the dog's really getting fired up now too.
Dog wants to speak about IMSA penalties.
Dog wants to speak about full course yellows. You implement the short yellow procedure that they already have well established and are using it. Implement that for more of the yellows. You know, if it is just, okay, we need to pull a car out of the gravel, then yeah, maybe use the short yellow procedure, even if it has been 30 minutes since the last, you know, since you went green or whatever. You know, it would normally be where a regular full course yellow would be used. You know, maybe be open to using that short yellow procedure. Of course, you have to bring all of this into the regulations in a way that teams are going to be able to understand, you know, when a short yellow is going to be thrown versus when it's not going to be thrown. But IMSA already does they already do a lot of things that would make, I think, this a short yellow procedure like this be able to, be implemented for purposes such as this. There's already a lot of times where they wait an entire lap to throw a full course yellow if there's a car stuck in the gravel. They're in many instances giving all the cars an opportunity to pass by the pit lane at least one time. So if they wanted to come in and take advantage of the full course yellow that was going to be coming out, to be able to complete their service and then go back out, maybe that's something that, you could explore. How can you use that more because then you're eliminating, the multiple laps that were going around for pit stops to be completed under a full course yellow, right? Maybe you can bring that down to a 2-lap, 3-lap procedure instead of, whatever it is now. So I don't know. I don't know if IMSA has some sort of like driver committee or anything like that. You hear of these driver-led committees a lot in other motorsports. I don't know if IMSA has a committee that's like that, but that would be a good start at least, right? Trying to brainstorm ideas amongst some of the very smart people that are involved in the sport on, how can this be resolved in a way that doesn't affect the racing that we have, that I think a lot of us generally agree that we have some great racing in IMSA. But so how do you maintain that great racing, but also take away some of the negatives that we see, which are these long extended full course yellow breaks?
Yeah. Aaron piping in the chat saying they don't have a sort of a committee, a drivers association, like they do in some other big series. They do definitely need some way for drivers to make their frustrations evident to race control, because, as much as we can talk about this right now, you and I are just sitting here, a couple of fans. What we say about it doesn't really, exactly, it doesn't really matter too much. When you start getting the drivers and the team owners involved and the manufacturers frustrated as well, that's where you want to have somewhere for their concerns to be at least heard. One of the notable cases of that over the weekend, I believe it was Russell Ward, don't quote me on that, was giving an interview to NBC. It was one of the guys from Windward, and was basically ripping the driving standards to shreds. I forget exactly what he had said, but it sort of made me give it a little eyebrow raise and say, "Oh, you're not really holding back right now."
And it's interesting coming from them and what they did during the race, but
yeah, well,
it was Russell.
Takes one to know one.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, to be fair, like half of the drivers were pretty.
Yeah, the Paul Miller guys were complaining about driving. I think Madison Snow was talking about it after the race. You had the Corvette drivers, of course, talking about it. A lot of people were bringing this up after Road America. So you need somewhere for those drivers to be able to vocalize those concerns and at least acknowledged by the people who are directing this entire show, if you will. I think you and I sort of hit the easy points there. I don't think they need to overcomplicate this. There are a couple things they can do that really should be quick fixes. I think number one, more consistent, more harsh officiating, stewarding would be one part of it. Make sure that those incidents, I don't care if you're a bronze driver or if you're a platinum driver, taking out a competitor, give them a stop 60. It doesn't really matter to me as long as you're doing it consistently to the point where it is known. It's a known deterrent to stop you from trying to do something like that in the future. And if it does happen, and if you have the ability to, throw a short yellow, because ultimately, like you said, a lot of the fan frustration is coming from these very long 20-minute full course yellows back to back. So find a way to fix that, and you're already 50% improved.
Yeah, you actually made an interest. You alluded to I don't remember if it was Madison Snow or Neil Verhagen. It was one of the winning cars in the BMW, well, the GTD Pro BMW, in the post race sort of press conference that made a comment, about like, oh well, let the we need to crack down on driving standards, but also like let the GTD pros race and let them do their thing. And it's like I think there's a real argument to be made that GTD Pro has been the biggest problem in the WeatherTech Championship this year. We're always going to have problems with the LMP2s, especially early on in the race when the bronze drivers are in the car. They're not professionals. It's going to happen. We've talked about this. We beat this horse dead many a times, but like the LMP2 class and having those bronze drivers, it's necessary for the sport as a whole. Because otherwise, the sport needs to have those big sponsors and big partners that are involved. But the GTD Pro drivers and a lot of the incidents, we've seen a ton of over aggressive incidents from them this year. You could make a very good argument that they have been the biggest problem of all. I
was going to say, coming from Paul Miller Racing is a crazy statement.
It was pretty wild to hear, especially considering they take out the Corvette, who is arguably the favorite to win this weekend with the pace that they had.
Oh, you're talking about this race? I thought you were talking about Daytona when they did that.
Oh no, I'm talking about this race. But yeah, you could fill this statement into a lot of races, I suppose. I don't know. GTD Pro has been an interesting one this year. A lot of penalties. We did see one incident that was, it was really a racing incident when the other Corvette got spun around the 4. It was right after the 3 got spun out, and there was kind of a checkup. And they kind of the 77 Porsche kind of ran into them a little bit, but on the scale of where that incident falls against a lot of other incidents this weekend, it's not really one that's a huge talking point. But yeah, I don't know. GTD Pro, I think, has been one of the issues, and I hope we don't see it creep into GTP. Especially with the high speed tracks that they're going to, and because we've seen some scary incidents with the GTPs in the few years that they've been on the grid, and we don't want to see somebody get hurt at the end of the day, right?
Well, of course, and I wouldn't expect that in GTP, to be honest with you, anyways, because you're talking about GT cars versus GTP, and I know these two classes of cars are probably the most similar they've been in a long time compared to what we used to have with like LMP1 cars up against GTE. There's a vast difference there.
Yeah.
But jumping back to that point of just let the GTD Pro guys race, I can kind of see where he's coming from, but at the end of the day, look what happens when it gets out of hand. You get races like Daytona this year, where you've got, look at the drama that we had after that race. Pretty much the main talking point between Corvette and Paul Miller Racing, and that was after Farfus already had gotten penalized for blocking, right? And then sort of all the gloves came off. Detroit, Corvette versus AO, Ford versus Paul Miller, was it there?
Was it Rexy that was blowing through people too? The Lexus did. Everybody was doing.
You had the it was Roxy at Detroit, but you had the
true.
the AO or Corvette spun AO, and then AO spun them back. Just mashed the throttle and spun them back. Listen, I'll tell you one thing. It's good for clip farming, if that's what we're after here. Some of the most iconic clips that we've gotten this year, of course, Tommy Milner at Daytona, say no more about that. But I'm looking at this from a competition standpoint, and as this is, don't get me on the train, man, but this is why I don't care about NASCAR anymore, is because they've strayed so far away from the competition aspect of it.
Yeah.
I don't want to see my beloved IMSA become that. But all of this to say, I sort of see where they're coming from. It has given us a lot of exciting moments this year, but you've got to draw a line in the sand somewhere and say this is just flat out not acceptable.
Yeah. I would love to be a fly on the wall at the Indy drivers meeting. I'm sure it'll be discussed at VIR as well, but with only the GTD classes there, I'm sure the Indy drivers meeting is going to would be a spicy one to sit in on.
You never know. VIR final sector is often a little spicy. We've seen some incidents there in the past that have been pretty noteworthy. So
You're right. We have whether
maybe
it's
we don't have to wait until Indy.
yeah, whether it's back to the last GTLM race there, I feel like was pretty spicy between Corvette and maybe Porsche, the Porsche that was on the
Yeah,
grid.
I'm thinking back to Acura and Lexus back in like 2017, 18.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it dates back quite a while. I don't know. You have anything else to chime in there? I know some people in the chat have been throwing out suggestions, which I'll probably save until the end just because of how many there are. But anything else you wanted to throw on?
Yeah, is there anything else? I mean, we could go. We could. Was there another real? Okay, I know. I did want to talk about one other incident, and that was between the 57 Windward Racing Mercedes and the 27 Heart of Racing Aston Martin. So going into, I think it's turn 5 technically, which is at the end of the long second straightaway on the track. And Windward made a hefty dive up the inside going into that corner. Just pushed the 27 out of the way to take that spot. And then coming into the next corner into turn 6, going up that hill, the 27 just pushed them out of the way like a snow plow. Just pushed them out of the way like with and the Windward ended up getting a penalty for it. The 27 did not. Now we don't know entirely. We don't have like the onboard telemetry or anything like that to know if 57 was brake checking the 27 in that instance or what was going on. But regardless, from my perspective, it sure looked like both of those cars deserved a penalty, the 27 and the 57. The 57 was the only one that ended up with a penalty. I don't know. Did you probably saw that incident that I'm referring to?
Yeah. Well, what does it come back to? It comes back to consistency with penalties.
Yeah.
If you're going to penalize one egregious action, why not the other? What was the penalty that 27 ended up getting there? I didn't catch.
20. I don't think the 27 ended up getting any penalties.
Sorry, I meant the 57.
Oh, I think it was just a drive-through. When I looked back at the replay, it was only the Porsche that got the stop plus 60. They were the only one that got that extra level of penalty. Yeah. Everybody else was just regular drive-throughs. Whether it was that one or the Lexus on the 57 Windward at Canada Corner, where they just literally just pushed them off the track. They were like, no, you don't get any track here. The FAF incident as well was just a regular drive-through. What was the other one? There was another.
There were so many. That's why, to be honest with you, that's why I said you tell me what happened, because
there was the BMW on the Corvette was just a regular drive-through as well. That one was one of the earlier incidents as well. And, you look back at that one compared to some of the other ones that we saw in this race, and that really wasn't the worst of the bunch.
On a restart too.
Yeah.
So it's like, give him a little bit of leeway on that.
Well, I agree. I was fine with it being a penalty. Even, this is before we saw the driving standards really jump off a cliff. I was fine with that being a penalty because at the end of the day, they did kind of just clean out the Corvettes. And, but yeah, it was a rough race for driving standards. I hope that we don't have to have this discussion ever again.
I'm sure we will. IMSA, change something. Just make a couple changes. That's it. That's all we're asking.
A couple of changes.
Not asking you to reinvent the wheel here.
Now, man, are we gonna carry? We're still talking about this race. One of the other things I wanted to talk about with the race, and I talked about it in my video, was, and you probably didn't experience this because you had the NBC broadcast. I was disappointed in how the broadcast was covering it. It felt like for the final 40 minutes of the race, kind of all that we heard about was the driving standards on the IMSA TV broadcast. And and I didn't love it. I don't like I understand that it is the biggest, arguably the biggest story of the race that's going on in that moment. But I felt like there was so much, as you talked about, when we had that extended green flag run there at the end, we had a lot of good racing that was going on. We had a killer LMP2 battle that was going on for that entire 40 minutes. We had the BMWs were nose to tail for a good chunk of it, while Acura was, hunting them down. Acura leapfrogging, the Porsches right off the start. And then, but we were hearing a lot about, the driving standards and suggestions that they shouldn't bring all of the classes back next year for a 6-hour race. And it was a little bit ridiculous. And it really took away from the view, from putting my, like the fan hat on here. It really took away, I felt like, from the final 40 minutes of that race. And, when we should have been trying to focus on some of the positives, and instead we were really dwelling on the negatives of that race, which were very obvious and up front for everybody. So I don't know. It happens, nobody's going to be perfect in the comm box. And I do genuinely like the comms team that we do have on the MCTV side. Usually that's Hindy and Ryan Marine, I think is how you pronounce his last name. I think Ryan's been great in the booth this year, and I really, really enjoyed him. Have really enjoyed him doing it. And then Hindy, of course, is a legend. Been broadcasting the series for Lord knows how long. So, I didn't like how we dwelled on that much in the final portion of that race. So hopefully we don't see that kind of rear its head again. But yeah. I don't know. I feel like that's all I have to talk about from the race.
Good point.
It's a lot of negatives. Oh,
well, and here we are for an hour and 7 minutes talking about a lot of negatives as well. So who are we to judge?
Yeah.
You had one more point?
We'll have no. I'll save that for the very end of the show because it's kind of a positive. No. It's a positive. I said we have this compliment sandwich.
Keeping you on your toes, folks.
Compliment sandwich. That's the cliffhanger, folks. That keeps you around till the end, right?
All right. Well, if we're continuing that spirit, we're going to continue with the negatives here, and then we'll wrap it all up with the nice, good news. Lamborghini. Been talking about these guys for the last year or so. What's the deal with the SC63? Jerry Seinfeld. What's the deal with the SC63?
Oh, we're going off the rails already, eh?
Of course. We're going to have some fun with it, all right? It's some bad news. Let's at least laugh about it.
Yeah, it's been a heavy first hour.
The program that has been uncertain for the last, since it hit the track for the first time at Sebring, essentially, or Qatar, I guess, finally got official confirmation from Lamborghini that we will unfortunately not be seeing that car on track in either series, WEC or IMSA next year. In what is perhaps the least surprising breaking news that I have ever had the privilege of reading out of IMSA news this year. Unfortunate to say. You and I have talked about this at length before. Lamborghini, of course, this year under new management or operational partnership with Riley. They are only running the Michelin Endurance Cup races again over in IMSA. Of course, they dropped that WEC program because of the 2-car mandate, or at least partially because of the 2-car mandate. A lot of restructuring that's been going on with that program over the past year or so. We knew from the beginning of this year that what they have in place right now, it was supposed to only be a temporary measure. They were hoping to attract the eyes of a privateer, maybe somebody like an AO Racing, just throwing that out there, who would have been able to pick them up for the 2027 IMSA season. And ultimately this year has not been very kind to them. Daytona and Sebring, both very miserable races for that team. Watkins Glen rolls around, actually have a pretty good race, all things considered, but unfortunately, maybe a little bit too little too late for them. You and I mentioned before, Watkins Glen probably was going to be the most important race for that program, just in terms of really being the last-ditch attempt to attract any privateer interest for 2027. ultimately now we're learning that none of that came to fruition, and they will not be on the grid next year. Lamborghini is describing that as a pause for the program. I
Heard that
feel very
before.
hesitant whenever I hear the word pause thrown around in sports car racing, because for all intents and purposes, I believe Audi is still paused on their LMDh program, so I'm just fingers crossed waiting for them to drop that one. But we'll see. I would say there is a little bit more to this Lamborghini story than I'm sort of throwing out right now. We've seen them starting to upgrade that car this year.
Yeah.
SportsCar 365 noted that they were working on an all-new rear suspension for that car. We're discussing some potential aerodynamic upgrades they'd wanted to do with that car as well, for future seasons. Those have been,
They might roll out some of those changes, I think, at Indy.
yeah, some of those changes might be rolled out. I know some of the larger scale aerodynamic changes they were trying to make have been shelved for this time. Of course, while the rest of the program is on hold. So we really don't know what the future of this program looks like. Perhaps somebody picks up where Lamborghini left off in 2027. But right now, all of their focus for next year in the sports car racing front is with the Temerario. I probably butchered that.
I think you got it.
GT3 car. Just call it the Huracan, man. It sounds cool. For next year. And we'll have to see what the future holds for them. Like I said, to me, this is a very unsurprising story. I was pretty much expecting that. Would have put $50 on it earlier in the summer if you asked. And as Mr. Waffle said in the chat, I fully expect Lamborghini to either win Petit Le Mans or Indianapolis because of this announcement.
No, they're not winning Petit. BMW's winning Petit because
Well,
that's what happens when teams are leaving the sport for a year. It's like a given.
Sure.
It's what happens. No. Now, a serious note here. Could the lifeline for the SC63 be the Asian Le Mans series? And
the customer picks it up.
Yeah, because that could be, and maybe Lamborghini says that they don't want to have any factory backing behind this, but they've already invested so much in the car. Could that like the Asian Le Mans series is an attempt to be a little bit more cost, not positive, but like cost friendly, having multiple races on a weekend. They're going to be bringing in, the GTPs or LMDHs slash hypercars, I guess, for it. Maybe Lamborghini could be a nice candidate for a series like that. Whether it is with, if, like you said, it's going to have to largely be privateer based. But maybe that's an option that could be appealing for that car if IMSA and clearly the WEC is off the table. I don't know, just spitballing.
So I don't see that as likely personally. The only reason I could see Lamborghini push for that is if they want to return to Le Mans and they get an invite, which they can't do anyways. Now that I'm thinking about it, because they can't go and race Le Mans with the SC63, even if they did race in the Asian Le Mans series, because that car doesn't race in WEC full time. So that's off the table.
They should make an exception for the
they won't because balance of performance.
They put it in as like the invitation, the Garage 56
Lamborghini.
Yeah, the Garage 56 Lamborghini. Like who? You're still getting to race
real innovative. Right? It's a twin turbo V8. It's like all the other twin turbo V8 prototypes.
But do something like something like that.
They're not going to do it.
They're not.
As much as I would love to play the game with you and go along with it, I'm being a realist here. And even if they could do that, let's say there's a hypothetical where Lamborghini can race in Le Mans and they get an auto invite for racing in the Asian Le Mans series. Even there, they're still not a factory team because it will be the team that gets the invite over to race at Le Mans. Yeah. So it's not like Lamborghini can do that and then say, all right, we're going to shovel all our factory guys in here and we're going to paint the car in our factory livery. I mean, I suppose they could go to an extent of doing that, sort of similar to what Mercedes had done this year with the Iron Lynx Mercedes at Le Mans, where they painted them in like pseudo factory liveries. But beyond that, it's not going to be like a proper factory program, which is
But
really
you're
what you
still
want at Le Mans.
but they would still be racing at Le Mans,
Yeah, but
which is huge.
does it matter to a manufacturer if you're not giving it your all?
Well, clearly it does, right? Like,
Well, who's doing it?
well, I mean, you look back a few years where, like, I guess who's another example? I wanted to say like Glickenhaus,
Well,
who weren't
Glickenhaus
going
is a
to.
boutique manufacturer. There's a big difference in my mind between Glickenhaus showing up on the greatest stage in sports car racing and saying, you know what, if we survive this race and we beat all the people who break down, we can say we beat Porsche. That's exactly
But
what they did in 23. Lamborghini, OEM like that, I don't think they're going to want to do the same thing.
but if you are in Lamborghini's shoes and you get to race at Le Mans, there's also all of everything that goes along with having a car that's running in Le Mans. You know, the hospitality, getting to bring like that is important
Okay.
for manufacturers as well.
Correct, but we're arguing a hypothetical here. We're arguing a scenario that isn't possible in the first place. So to answer your question, do I think it's possible they race in the Asian Le Mans Series again if they find a customer? To me, the future of this program is U.S. based, and if there is a future at all, it is IMSA based.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, if you take a year off and like I don't see a situation where you're going to attract customers if you take a year off, especially if you're pausing development on the car.
Yeah.
So that's why I say like this whole on hold ordeal. We'll see. I think middle of next year will be the program's on life support right now.
Yeah.
And middle of next year, I think is going to really be what we see for the future of this program if it happens at all. I'm sort of skeptical, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it's been a doomed program since the start, really.
Yeah.
Like, you want to talk about domino effects in sports car racing? Their testing crash at Paul Ricard. If you're not familiar, really messed up the homologation for the car. They had to homologate it with different parts than they had wanted to, parts that were heavier than they had intended on. And really, the car, since it started on track for the first time in official running at Qatar in 2024, has not been at its potential. And they haven't been able to do anything about it because the car is locked into homologation, so they'd have to put a Joker upgrade on the car just to fix it.
That's been something that has been surprising to me in seeing how these, especially these like LMDHs have been developed, is that it seems like the manufacturers wait so late to have that car, you know, begin on-track testing. And then it's just trying to fire through so much on-track testing that there's very little time for them to actually go back and resolve the issues that they have. Like we saw it with the SC63, they missed the Rolex. It's because they were continuing to do development on the car, the Valkyrie as well.
Yeah.
But then you see on the flip side, we've been talking about this new Lexus or Toyota GT3 that's in the works, and they've been at that thing for years. And you know that thing's going to roll out, and it's going to be, you know, bulletproof, right? We're not gonna see,
because they're not going to do an Evo upgrade on it.
Yeah, that's true. They got to get it right the first time. But I mean, it surprised me that we haven't seen. Maybe we'll see that more with this next wave of manufacturers coming, like your McLaren, like your Genesis, your Ford, stuff like that, where, you know, they extend out the development timeline a little bit more to be able to add in some extra buffer time. But I don't know, personally, for me, again, from a fan perspective, it's surprising to see like how tight those timelines can be together when we know that like one testing crash can blow everything up. But especially when they're investing the amount of money that they are into these things.
Yep. Well, a lot of these programs, I think, started out WEC first because they wanted to go race at Le Mans. And the thing with the Rolex is that race is a month and a half. Or I guess WEC now starts in like very early March. So it's like a little over a month, 5 weeks or so before.
Yeah.
That's a good amount of time, though, when you're talking about development of a car and really locking things down. 5 weeks is really the difference between multiple on-track testing sessions and not. So
yeah. I don't know.
Somebody said, I'm noticing a pattern when cars skip Daytona, they have long-term issues. I think that
Calgary's
speaks
been pretty
more.
good so far.
It's been good. It's definitely been on the back foot. I think that speaks more towards the effort that the manufacturer is putting in, really. It's sort of echoed in whether or not they run Daytona that first year. Like, take somebody like Porsche. Porsche was really ahead of the ball with developing their car. And look at the
Cadillac
state
too.
they're in now. Yeah, Cadillac. So BMW was like very tight on being able to make Daytona in 2023.
Yeah.
So they sort of started out on the back foot. So
Acura was too, if I recall. It was Acura and BMW that were the lower of the two cars on the miles completed in testing sort of a meter. So yeah.
So I don't know if I have anything else to add on to that. Don't know if you do either, but we'll throw it in the wait and see.
SC63 in the Asian Le Mans series. Let's go.
If you and I keep funding stuff, we keep talking about the funded hypercar.
Let me dream.
Yeah, I will. All right, on to some good news. We've been tossing around the negatives all show long. I promise we're gonna turn things around. We're gonna start right now. Small piece of news. I don't want to talk about it for too long, but BMW sort of announced their commitment to the long-term future with their M Hybrid V8, which is great because there was some skepticism going on with the future of that program over in IMSA, of course, with Rahal leaving this year. We still don't know what that program is going to look like in IMSA next year, but BMW did confirm that they will be present, at least in some capacity, with that M Hybrid V8 program into the near future. They really didn't give a whole lot of details on that announcement, other than the fact that they do still plan on they still do intend to race in both series in some capacity, especially seems like the focus is on the WEC side of things, where they've been very close to a race win for the past year or so now. Really just nice to have that commitment vocalized from them in a moment where there was some uncertainty going on that came around the same time as Lamborghini. So
yeah,
don't know if I have anything else to put on there.
Yeah. BMW sticking around. Good to see. Hopefully we get some more announcements like this shortly from manufacturers like Porsche.
Well, Porsche already gave us a sort of little bit of this. They said they're committed to next year at least, which was not a guarantee earlier in the season. So
again, the question there is like what capacity, right?
Well, no, I mean Porsche is going to be unchanged, really.
We hope. We hope.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't expect us to see Porsche in any different capacity next year. I'll just leave it at that. Beyond 27, we'll see. But for next year, I expect to see the same as we have right now. Okay, there were a lot of questions that I have to jump back to from earlier in the episode. Did you have
the final piece of I guess maybe it's not positive news, but I don't know, maybe it's kind of more it's not even feel good news. There's
setting this one up, man.
Yeah, maybe it's not the whole positivity sandwich that it's ending off on, but it was an announcement from today is that Gar Robinson is going to be stepping back from running in IMSA. I think it's at the end of this season, although it wasn't immediately obvious in the video that he had released. Gar Robinson, former LMP3 champion, in IMSA's won a ton of races in LMP3, racing GTD prior to that, currently races in LMP2. I think definitely one of the he flies under the radar, I think, in terms of bronze drivers and how good he is. Has a long history in the sport as well, and he's stepping back to do some more rally racing Stepping back from full-time sports car racing is what he said. So maybe we'll still see him on the grid for like the Rolex or something. But yeah, Gar Robinson, kind of an iconic name in the paddock. And good follow on Instagram if you want to see some crazy stuff that he does on the ranch, like minivan races and stuff like that. So
I'll add that to the list because I haven't seen any of that.
Yeah, if you want some fun racing to watch, then Gar, there's usually some pretty good videos there.
Yeah, Aaron Pfeiffer actually made a comment about that a couple minutes ago, saying
rough week
rough week for Riley. So I guess Riley has to find a new bronze over in LMP2.
Yeah, hopeful. That's another one. Hopefully we're going to see them land on their feet. They're always kicking around some.
Well, there's a comment about it, so we'll get over to that in a minute.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Let's see. Good place to have a start here. AO Racing looking good enough to step up to a partnership with Porsche and GTP. Talked about that in the last episode, I think it was. You and I having a little bit of a debate on whether or not PJ Hyatt should make that step up to full-time racing in GTP. But yeah, definitely continuing with the hot streak that they're on right now in the LMP2 class. Talking about them as championship. I don't know if they're definitely one of the championship favorites right now.
They're leading by 100 points. So
yeah.
They're going to have the bullseye on the back.
Yep. Well, as the 22 did have going into Road America. So.
Yeah.
Maintain that the last 16 hours of racing you got to do. But yeah, I think they're the most likely name to step up to a 963 program next year. I'm at the point where I'm expecting we'll probably hear something about that. Would likely come around Road Atlanta, I'm assuming.
They've been talking it down for next year, though. Maybe.
Have they?
Yeah.
They keep teasing this whole shark livery. Is this like an inside joke?
There was a comment by Gunnar Jeanette, who's the team manager, team owner, one of the two. And he said that we are exploring it, but I think he kind of pumped the brakes on next year. But who knows, right? We see these things get not lied about, but the truth is kind of withheld.
Yeah, I guess.
I think they were also ones that were exploring the Asian Le Mans series as well. And I think I saw a quote that
get a Le Mans invite.
Yeah, exactly. That they would only do it if there was a Le Mans invite.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that's sort of, I mean, not to jump off track here, but I think that's something the Asian Le Mans series needs if they want cars in that class.
Especially, can't even say it with a straight face. I was going to say, especially if they want the SC63.
Hey.
Oh, boy. Carry on with the comments.
Yep. What's the history, if any, between Corvette and BMW before Daytona this year? BMW and Corvette have history. I don't know if BMW and Paul Miller Racing have a lot of history before this year. I mean, but there have been some incidents between the factory BMWs and Corvette Racing. Most notable one that comes to my head is 2021 Sebring finish.
Yeah, the infamous, was that the flashing headlights, and then basically did the Corvette dump the BMW, or did the BMW dump the Corvette?
BMW got rid of the Corvette.
Yes.
I want to say it was Connor DeFilippi.
Driving.
Yeah. And
I think you might be right.
I can't even remember if it was the 3 or the 4.
I think it was Jordan in the car, wasn't it? Because I thought in the lead up to that, Jordan was flashing the headlights. Like the iconic headlight flash was just.
You might be right. But yeah, there is some history between the two of them. There's definitely probably other incidents in there as well. Because we've seen those two manufacturers in GT racing consistently since 2009. So they're racing up against each other, I should say, since 2009. But
not in the same class until last year.
Well, no. I mean, I'm looking back to like GT2, GT class in ALMS, GTLM.
Then.
Yeah,
but they did. But Paul Miller Racing didn't race
No,
Paul
no, no.
Miller
I'm
Racing's
talking about
pretty-
BMW.
Oh, BMW. Okay, yes,
Yeah.
yes, 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 yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and Paul Miller, though, in Corvette, though, I think that one's relatively new. But they started out
Yeah.
strong this year at Daytona. And that's sort
Yeah,
of been,
they kicked that one off with fireworks.
yeah. Also, another positive, bumping into David Land Sunday morning, getting to talk to him for a little bit. Yeah, yeah, David's a character. I spent spent like 2.5 weeks with that guy over in Europe. So if you see him again, tell him I say hi. Over the weekend, they handed out 3 Stop Plus 60s across the 2 main series. From
So
Aaron.
1 in WeatherTech, 2 in Pilot
Must have
Challenge,
been
I
2 in
guess.
Pilot, yeah.
I have not watched the Pilot Challenge race. While that race was going on, I was officiating my sister's wedding, so I think I have a hall pass for that one. Yeah,
Yep.
I'll catch up on it eventually.
Congrats to Stu's sister.
Yeah,
I still remember people complaining about the long IMSA yellows in the 2021 Rolex 24. And that's the point I'm trying to drive home here is like, we have been talking about this for so long at this point. This is not a new issue. And I don't think we've seen, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've seen really anything in the
there have
way
been
of
changes. They have made some tweaks to the wave around procedures and like the class split procedures over the past couple of years that have shortened like that up a little bit. But
Yeah.
in terms of real impactful stuff, no, they haven't made any huge impactful changes.
Right. And yeah,
We do have to give them a little bit of credit. We can't just
well, I'll give credit where
can't-
it's due, but it's
Yeah.
it's not enough yet, is what I would say.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll see more of that in the off season this year. Can only hope.
that's true.
IMSA's too much like NASCAR when it comes to cautions. NASCAR will take any opportunity to have another restart, and it just doesn't work in sports cars. I do think one comment I didn't make that I might have wanted to during, I guess I'll just make it now. There are some incidents in yellow in IMSA that just don't warrant a yellow.
Yeah.
Like the 7 and the 10 to me shouldn't have been.
No, yeah, that one did not. Yeah, yeah.
There's not a car in the wall. The car's not stuck. Shouldn't be a yellow.
It's not in a great spot, but that's you have local yellows and
For a reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's no different than a car going off in turn 1 at Daytona.
Yeah.
I mean, unless your concern is like debris on the track, but it wasn't even on the racing line, so.
Yep. No, yeah, that one I agree. I think caution trigger was a little quick.
You know, to give IMSA some credit, they're not as egregious with it as NASCAR. Like, I'll say that much. I'm not going to turn this into a complaint about NASCAR show, but there are definitely some incidents though that I look at and I say that shouldn't have been a yellow. And those are the things. Those are always the things that turn into additional controversy afterwards. So
I think those are the incidents that really irk on the fans more about the whole debate on virtual safety car, virtual full course yellow, whatever you want to call it. I think it's incidents like those where there's like the debris yellow and stuff like that you know, often or a car stuck in the gravel way off the racing line that takes 15 seconds to pull out, but we have to deal with a 15-minute full course yellow. Those are the incidents that really get everybody going.
Yep. Why not just do what WEC does and avoid all of this? To keep it simple with you, fans don't want it. Like the American fan, American casual TV fan for motorsports doesn't want it. I think a lot of fans at the track don't want it. As weird as it is to say, because right now we're complaining about too much full course yellow. I think a lot of people in IMSA are expecting some of those grandstand finish moments that we see. And I definitely sympathize with both sides of it. To me, ultimate sports car race in terms of just a purity standpoint is the 24 Hours of Nürburgring, because you can look at the end of that race. I guess there's some controversy this year, but generally speaking, you can look at the end of that race and say whoever won, without question, deserved it the most. They were the most consistently fast, and didn't have safety cars to bunch up the field and then had pace when it mattered most. But the motorsports scene over in North America, particularly the United States. You look at what we have, like you can even compare IndyCar versus Formula One. Very different way at which they handle yellow flags.
Mm-hmm.
IndyCar doesn't have a virtual safety car system. Don't see them implementing something like that anytime soon, at least. And it's just sort of the way that motorsports has been built up around here. I personally would be fine with either way. There are advantages to both, but I can certainly understand why they haven't gone full WEC. And because WEC races, more often than not nowadays, we're talking about a 6-hour race with no safety cars.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the past couple seasons. They take advantage as much as they can of those full course yellows and try to keep the race moving. But then in return, you generally don't see bumper to bumper racing quite as much. You don't see finishes as close.
Yeah.
Which is what you'd expect. But
I mean, I think back to Petit Le Mans last year and that really long stint of green flag running that we had. And, like, I think, did we have a late full course? We did have late full course yellow in that.
Yeah, it was
but
the trademarked one.
But it was, the
The
trademark.
last hour
right.
at Petit Le Mans always happens.
You're right. It's okay that the racing is different, in different championships around the world, that there's different tendencies, that it's good that IMSA handles things differently than the WEC does, and vice versa, because it gives us the fans, a unique racing product for both of these championships. They're uniquely entertaining. Maybe there's certain championships that appeal to different people a little bit more than others, but it gives us some variety, at least. And I think based on our discussions here today, we would like to see a little bit less of the insanity that we've maybe seen a little bit recently in IMSA with the sheer volume of full course yellows. But I think, everybody that watches IMSA also understands that, it is baked into the history, these different full course yellow procedures, and the style of IMSA racing is really what has made IMSA what it is today. And unique from other championships like WEC or the bunch.
One comment off of this that actually sort of an interesting point we didn't talk about. Aaron saying, no way IMSA will go the VSC. You do that, you lose the bronze drivers.
Yeah.
Assuming what you're saying here is right now, be it GTD or LMP2, you have a bronze driver in the car. They'll start the race as they almost always do. And run their stint, likely going to be a yellow flag somewhere in the race, and then they'll swap out with the pro driver. Pro driver will bring it to the end of the finish. I don't know if I 100% agree, because we already have that in the WEC. We already have that in the European Le Mans Series, where there's a lot less safety car interventions, but we still have bronze drivers. Really a big, heavy presence of bronze drivers making an impact in the WEC this year in the LMGT3 class. So I don't know why IMSA would necessarily be any different. But definitely an interesting point that I didn't really think about.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be interesting to hear more from Aaron about why you think you would lose the bronze drivers in that. Yeah, maybe I have to talk to him about it at some point.
If only you had a podcast.
If only, right? If only.
You might have something here.
No, I was just looking at, there was some comments about, I think it was in regards to all the full course yellows, got to make that ad money. The FIA has their own streaming service. IMSA has to answer to NBC, but let's be real. If it's a fully green race, NBC is plowing over that green flag coverage with ads regardless. Like, regardless if there's a yellow out or not.
Yeah, but if there's yellow out, they can throw one and the fans don't complain.
That's true.
I think it's the difference. I mean, it's no secret that US TV networks do that, because that's a big incentive behind stage racing. It's a free ad break in NASCAR. So Like, I'm not going to, I don't think that's a primary reason, primarily because the broadcast, to be honest with you, is a lot different for IMSA. And I could do a whole episode just talking about how the broadcast is structured for IMSA right now on NBC. In that, like, when NBC covers NASCAR, their executives are a lot more dialed in with what they're expecting to see in the broadcast. They're a lot more dialed in with the actual decision making of the championship than they are with IMSA, like significantly more. So I don't know how much that actually plays a factor in IMSA, but it definitely sort of follows the trend of what you see for motorsports coverage over here in the U.S.
Yep.
Here's a question that I brought up earlier. With Lamborghini on pause, do you think Riley's going to try to stay in GTP or just stay in LMP2? I'll keep this one quick. I really just think they're going to stay in LMP2.
Yeah.
You know, they're... You got something?
Finish your thought.
Well, they're a team that has presence, a pretty wide presence in IMSA right now, and I don't see a reason for them to scale that up. They stay in LMP2 as long as they can find a driver to replace Gar Robinson as a bronze driver for that car. They've had no shortage of success, especially over in the LMP3 class, as you had mentioned, when they had that program. So that's where I expect them to stay. I don't expect them to make the jump up to GTP unless they were like fully ingrained in with a manufacturer. The whole big reason they have that program this year is they've got Lamborghini factory drivers behind them. They've got Lamborghini factory support behind them.
Yeah.
And to me, it doesn't make any sense for them to do that unless they had somebody like Acura or BMW. Maybe Riley's like a manufacturer. We talked about people who could partner with WRT potentially. Maybe in like a capacity like that. In fact, you might have even said Riley last week or last episode when we talked about that. I can't remember.
Don't remember.
But we were throwing a couple different names around.
Yeah.
But like that's as far as I would go as seeing a team like Riley step up. If they were just pure customer, I see them staying in LMP2.
Yeah. Unless if they were a pure customer, but they had a driver that brought a ton of money, but I don't think that's a golden egg that's really out there at this point. For that GTP funding. I agree. I don't think we're going to see Riley in GTP next year. I hope we see them in LMP2. I also hope that if they do stick around in LMP2, then I hope we see them expand some of their program again in IMSA. They have run GTD cars in the past. They did so with Gar number of years ago. I think it was a Mercedes is the kind of iconic one that pops into my mind. I think Ben Keating ran with Riley and GTD for some races as well. That was a number of years ago though. But Riley was partnered with Kelly Moss. We remember when Kelly Moss made the jump up to the WeatherTech Championship a couple years ago. And they've kind of they've retreated back, it seems, to the Porsche Carrera Cup, and I don't think they're running anything in Pilot Challenge. But Riley also had they don't have Porsche on the GS grid in Pilot Challenge this year, and they had a pretty successful entry in that last year. So I hope that we do see Riley, maintain a really strong presence in the sport. Whether that's in LMP2, GTD, some of the support series, regardless of what it is, really an iconic name in the IMSA paddock. So hopefully we see them with some clear plans, and I'm sure they have something in the works.
Yeah, iconic name and a name that's been around in the sports car racing paddock for much longer than I've been around. So
here's a name that could be interesting for them. From like a GTD perspective, like a Sheena Monk. We know that Sheena Monk brings funding with her, and she's motivated to try and win the Bob Akin Award and make that trip to Le Mans. Maybe Riley is a nice partnership there to help get that done in GTD. Who knows?
We're running a consulting firm
just
over here at this point.
Just spitballing.
Bill, if you're listening. my thing is who's going to invest in an underdeveloped Lamborghini SC63 that's run part-time
Okay, got
IMSA for 2 years in 2027. All right. Speaking brutal, I see. I think this program is dead, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You said it a lot more blunt than I did, but you also said it a lot more quicker than I did. I pretty much agree with you.
But do you think it's? But who asked this question?
Milton.
Okay, Milton. Do you think it's dead in just IMSA, or is it also dead in the
just,
Asian Le Mans series?
I'm guessing like you must be cooking something up in the background there. All of this talking about IMSA on your YouTube channel. You're like, I'm gonna switch I'm an Asian Le Mans series YouTuber now.
The Asian Le Mans series is on the rise. It's on the rise.
It's free real estate. Taking a year and bouncing off this, taking a year off isn't going to convince a customer team to run the Lambo any more than they would now.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
The Valkyrie has exceeded my expectations. I see it being a race winner, but a championship would be unlikely. Well, okay, so the Valkyrie's picking up steam. At least over in IMSA right now, the WEC, it is a slower catch up. Sort of very similar to what we've seen with other programs, where first year in IMSA generally goes better for one reason or another. It's tricky to say because they don't have the same level of backing behind them as like a Porsche does, where you have full factory support behind you. You've got 2 cars. I think the 2 cars is a real big thing.
Yes.
But it hasn't stopped manufacturers before, or at least teams before. Like Meyer Shank, of course, was successful with 1 car in the DPI and GTP class when they started out before their hiatus. So I would tend to agree with most of that. I would say race winner at some point, probably not this year. I don't think you're going to find them on the top step of the podium in the last couple of races, but next year, sure. I don't see a reason why not.
Absolutely. We've talked about on this show before that like this first year is all about, developing the car, getting your feet under you, understanding the car and, what its shortcomings are and try and work on those. And then the second year of a program, you're trying to develop that into a race winning car. And then hopefully by the third year of the program, you think that you're capable of winning a championship with that car. So I don't know. I think it's too early to say that, it's the Valkyrie isn't likely to win a championship. Okay, maybe it is unlikely, but it's also unlikely that any of the cars win a championship too. So
not Porsche this year.
Yeah, true. But the Valkyrie is very much trending, I think, with what they have accomplished so far this year, that they could be competing for podiums next year, I think is reasonable to say. So I don't know, give the Valkyrie a couple years. Maybe they opt to throw a second car in IMSA. Who knows? Probably unlikely, but again, who knows? And you never know.
Yeah.
It sure sounds like a winner.
Ryan Nelson saying, I remember a violent incident with a vet in Porsche, but I thought that was Laguna Seca. It was 2009. It's got probably about 4 million views on YouTube at this point. And people are still arguing about it to this day. So you can go take a look at that if you want.
If sports car racing fans are nothing else, they do not let things die. That's for sure.
Yeah. Kevin, you mentioned to David that you watch this podcast. Yeah. Appreciate that. And yeah, I did spend some time at Le Mans with David for the second time. It was 2023 and this year.
Aaron said another damn wedding.
Yeah, well, Aaron, there's more to come.
I'm also missing Petite because of a wedding. So
there you go. There you go. The conversation about yellows just goes back to driving standards. These guys need to just keep it clean. Yes and no. I think that's like easier said than done. I think this goes back to what I said earlier, where you have so many cars on track. We're not talking about F1 here, where you've got, whether you agree with their 20 of the absolute best drivers in the world or not, you've got 20 cars on track. IndyCar, you've got fluctuating between, what's IndyCar up to, like 26, 28 cars or something like that
Yeah.
on road courses nowadays.
Depends on, yeah.
We've got 30 plus cars most weekends, 4 different classes, most races, wide variety of drivers from different backgrounds, different skill sets. There's going to be incidents that just wouldn't happen as much in other series. You can say that flat out. What IMSA needs to really focus on is, number one, punishing people who actually cause those incidents, whether they're, again, bronze or platinum. And then number two, trying to figure out how they can improve the full course yellow situation so that we're not stacking up the field as often. I think that's number one. And if you can't do that, then just shorten the yellows that you already have when you can. When's the next WEC race? I feel like it's been forever. It is the Lone Star Le Mans. Actually,
Labor Day weekend?
Weekend after. It actually might be a week, or not a week, a month from today, actually. There you go. Cool. September 7th over in Austin, Texas. And then we'll have Fuji only a couple weeks later, so you don't have to wait too long between the two of those.
Yep. Ryan Nelson says Keating is a big name in bronze over in FIA, has been for a while from what I understand. And I also know, Ryan, I remember your comment from earlier that you're a newer fan to IMSA. So Ben Keating is an icon of the sport, especially when it comes to bronze drivers. That man has won, just about everything that there is to win. For a bronze driver in sports car racing, like anywhere in the world, it seems. One of the legends, the true legends of the sport. So, Ben Keating is a huge name for sure.
Yeah, and talk about people who are versatile. Any car in sports car or any class in IMSA, he's pretty much run at this point.
Yep. Is he the only bronze-rated driver to run a GTP?
I would say so.
Does that also include like a hypercar? Has there been a bronze that's run?
Some silvers have run in the WEC. I don't think any of them were bronze. Let's just say silvers. Yeah, I would say so. But if you look back at the GTE days, there was a time where he had run every single GTE car that was present in the championship at one point, except I think for the M8. I almost said M Hybrid V8. But the BMW M8, the big boy, because he had run the Porsche, the Corvette, the Ford,
Aston,
Ferrari. He had run, I think, the lot apart from that BMW. So
wasn't there a Viper?
Yeah, there was a Viper. He ran that. Yeah. That was the Viper Exchange. That was Riley.
Yeah.
So. Aaron saying Riley will be in GTD. Okay.
Yeah, Aaron, how are you so certain about this? Or are you involved in that program? Do you care to tell us at this point? Is Preston making the jump to GTD?
Kind of sucks to see that the Lamborghini is probably... okay, let's restart this. Kind of sucks to see that the Lamborghini is probably going to be the only LMDh to use the Ligier chassis. Yeah, that's true, isn't it? I was trying to think down at the manufacturers we have coming in. They're all Dallara and Orica.
McLaren using?
Is it Dallara? Dallara.
Yeah. Yeah, because everybody's like, oh, it has styling cues of the Cadillac. I'm like,
yeah, okay.
Sure.
In the same way that BMW does.
No,
you know what? I never.
McLaren, the Cadillac looks good. The McLaren is ugly. We've established this.
Yeah, you know what? They put like they announced a track, a limited edition, as manufacturers do. They announced like a limited edition, customer, purchasable, track day only car version of that variant. Thank you, of that car, with like different liveries on it. And I'm telling you, if you put the right livery on it, it'll look okay.
No,
I've said this before.
I'm not sold. Let me take one of these out on the track and see what it can do.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be sold.
Channel. Okay.
I'll be sold.
McLaren,
I can be bought. I can be bought.
Bought and paid for. You're going to miss my championship party for a wedding. I'll be there, Aaron, okay? If you want to give me a shout.
Andrew doesn't like that.
There's a chance I might be in your garage that weekend anyways if I end up working with the herd of guys again, so I'll give you a wave.
Andrew doesn't like that comment as much.
Yeah. We got a whole lot of Brian Herd Autosport / Hyundai in here right now. All right. I think that's good enough. Yeah.
I think so.
We're damn near 2 hours on this episode. We spent a lot of time bashing IMSA. I'll say one thing about IMSA on the good side. Congrats on 1 million.
Yeah.
You are about 100 times bigger than my channel statistically. So there you go.
They've done a really good job there the past year and a half, really. Year and a half or 2.5 years. It's one of those numbers.
And a big thing really is the live streaming, I think, has really boosted that channel to new
and win
levels.
the weekend has been huge for them.
So good news. Sorry we spent a lot of time bashing you in this episode, but just make a couple improvements over the off season.
And really good job on the BOP.
Yeah.
Good job on especially the GTP BOP. That was we had all 5 manufacturers within 7/10 of one another at the longest track on the calendar. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
All right. For us, we've got only a few races left this year. It's unbelievable to say, but in IMSA we've got VIR GT only round coming up, and then we've got Indianapolis, and then we've got Petit Le Mans. Over in the World Endurance Championship, we've only got 3 races left as well. We have Coda, Fuji, and Bahrain. So well past the halfway point of the championship again. For both series, and we'll be in the off season. We got plenty more to discuss though as we get closer to that. A lot of unanswered questions, so we'll be here. You know where to find us. 8 p.m. Thursdays on YouTube ish. Yeah, sometimes not. As always, I want to thank you if you tuned into this episode, whether it was live or on a podcasting platform. We'll see you soon for another episode of the Rain Race Podcast. Take care.